I'd been hiking the trail for years. That was probably the reason what happened still bothers me. If it had been my first time there, I could have blamed getting lost. But I knew this place. I know the trail. I know where it went. And most importantly, I knew there was only one path through that particular section of woods. This happened a couple of years ago. My fiancée, my best friend, and I decided to go hiking together. The trail was a popular one in our area. It eventually led to a huge rock that hung over a cliff, giving you an incredible view over the city. I'd done the hike several times before, even once after midnight. It wasn't an easy walk, but it wasn't particularly difficult either. The path was obvious. You basically followed it straight through the woods for about an hour before reaching a sharp turn. From there, the trail became narrower and steeper until you reached an open area. Then you climbed one final section and reached the rock. Simple. That evening though, we left later than we planned. It was around 7 o'clock when we started. The sun was already beginning to disappear. We had flashlights, but none of us were particularly concerned. We'd been on this trail before, we knew where we were going. About an hour into the hike, we reached a clearing. It was one of those few places where the trees opened up enough so that you could see the city below. But something looked wrong. The view didn't look right. I can't really explain it. It was almost as though the city had been rearranged. Everything looked slightly off. Not completely different, just wrong. We stopped for a moment and looked around. That's when we noticed something else. There were beer bottles scattered around, and then we saw chairs. Several old chairs had been arranged in a circle. There was no fire in the middle, no campsite, no obvious reason for them to be there. Just a circle of chairs sitting in the middle of the woods. At the time, we joked about it. Someone must camp there. Maybe some teenagers come up here. Maybe somebody had built their own little hideout. We didn't think much more about it until we left. We continued along the trail. A few minutes later, we realised something strange. We were back at the chairs. We laughed. We assumed we'd somehow turned around, so we tried again. We walked away in a different direction. We were careful this time. We paid attention to every turn. We watched the trees. We watched the trail. And eventually, we were back at the chairs. Nobody thought it was funny anymore. We tried another route. Same thing. Chairs appeared again. Then something happened that made the entire situation much worse. We found a door. It was standing by itself in the woods. Not attached to a house. Not attached to anything. Just a door. We stopped in front of it. None of us knew what to say. There was no building around it. No structure. Nothing. Just a door surrounded by trees. At this point, we were genuinely lost. We tried calling people. We tried texting. We called our parents. Nobody answered. The sun had completely disappeared by then. The three of us were standing in the woods with flashlights, trying to figure out how we'd managed to get lost on a trail we'd walked several times before. Eventually, we decided to go back the way we come. We picked a different direction and started walking. The strange thing was that the path suddenly seemed incredibly difficult to follow. We'd walk for several minutes, then we'd somehow end up back at the clearing. The chairs, the bottles, the door, every time. It felt like we were walking in circles. But the problem was that we weren't. We were paying attention. We weren't wandering through the woods. We were following what appeared to be an actual trail. Eventually, we started thinking about spending the night out there. None of us wanted to. It was getting colder. We didn't have enough supplies. and the idea of sitting around those chairs until morning was terrifying. So we decided to keep walking. And then, suddenly, we found the exit. It was almost ridiculous. 1 minute we were completely lost, the next we were walking down a normal path, and within minutes we were out of the woods. We couldn't believe it. It was as though the entire thing had just simply stopped. We checked our phones. That's when my fiancé noticed something strange. His phone had taken photographs, hundreds of them, at exactly 10:32 p.m. More than 1,000 photographs had been taken in a burst. He hadn't taken them. None of us had. We started going through them. Most of them were completely white, just blank, overexposed images. We couldn't understand how it happened. The phone had been in his possession the entire time. His flashlight had been on, but somehow the camera had taken hundreds of photographs while we were lost. We didn't know what to make of it. We eventually went home. For months afterwards, we talked about what happened. We came up with explanations. Maybe we'd become disorientated. Maybe darkness had made the familiar trail look different. Maybe we'd wandered onto a section of land that we'd never seen before. Maybe someone had built the chairs and the door as some bizarre campsite. The photographs were the hardest to explain, but eventually we tried to forget about it. Almost a year passed. Then my fiancé and I decided to go back. Not because we wanted another adventure. We wanted answers. We wanted to prove to ourselves that the place had been real. We followed that trail again. We walked for hours. We reached the clearing where we remembered seeing the city, but we couldn't find the chairs. We couldn't find the door. We couldn't find anything. We searched the area. Nothing. Eventually, we gave up. We were about to leave when we noticed something nearby. Giant meat grinder. Just sitting there, in the woods. We had no idea why it was there, and by that point, we didn't particularly want to know. I've tried to find a rational explanation ever since. Maybe we got turned around. Maybe we were exhausted. Maybe darkness distorted our sense of direction. Maybe the chairs and the door belonged to some kind of abandoned campsite. And maybe the photographs were just some bizarre malfunction. I don't know. But there's one thing that still bothers me. I knew that trail. I knew it well. I've walked it during the day. I've walked it at night. I've walked it alone. I've walked it with other people. I've never been lost there before. And I've never been able to find that place again. Not the chairs, not the door, not the clearing, nothing. Whatever happened that night, I still don't have an explanation. And honestly, I'm not sure I want one.
Like what you heard? Hit subscribe and like the video for more stories every Thursday and Sunday between 1800 and 2000 BST. And remember, curiosity opens doors better left closed.